Good evening, and of course, welcome to Political Conversations on Freedom Square TV. We are reaching you as usual from our Enugu studios. And of course, Enugu is still the capital of Southeast Nigeria. And of course, it's known as the coal city state. And if you don't remember anything about Enugu, you remember about the miners riots that happened several years ago. Let's be honest, democracy, as is practiced in Nigeria and elsewhere, is not sustained by elections alone. Elections alone do not sustain democracy. Very often, many people believe, rightly or wrongly, that democracy survives and is sustained by elections. The truth is that democracy survives, thrives, and, is sustained on institutions, viable institutions, very strong institutions. Without any iota of doubt, one of the most critical institutional relationships in any democracy is that between the executive and the legislature. The Nigerian Constitution clearly separates government powers into three arms: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. Separation of powers means structured cooperation guided by checks and balances. And Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution vests law-making powers in the legislature, the National Assembly at the federal level, the Houses of Assembly at the state level, and local government legislative councils at the local government level. These are the bodies saddled with the responsibility of making laws. In simple terms, one arm makes the laws, the other implements them. But governance is never that simple, not that simplistic. The executive prepares the budget, but it is the legislature that must approve it. The executive appoints ministers and commissioners. The legislature confirms them. The legislature has the constitutional power to conduct investigations, summon public officials, and scrutinize how public funds are spent. This is what we refer as oversight. And oversight is not hostility. Oversight is accountability in action. However, in practice and in practical terms, the relationship between these two arms has often been complex. Since 1999 in Nigeria, and maybe elsewhere, we have witnessed moments of confrontation, budget delays, impeachment threats, leadership crisis, allegations of budget padding, and political power struggles. And of course, it is not limited to any particular state. It's not limited to any particular country. It's something you find even in the most advanced countries. Of course, you know, as we speak, in the United States of America, the Republicans and the Democrats, who are in the Senate and the House of, they're all literally fighting every other day. And so it's not something that is novel or new to our country. But at other times, we have witnessed what critics describe as excessive harmony, where the legislature becomes, as it were, the wives, the governors, or the executive. That is when it is excessive, when it's taken too far, when the relationship is done too close that you don't even check what the other one is there. And many people have accused the legislatures as rubber stamps. I don't know how hard to read that. Approving executive requests with minimal resistance or scrutiny. Sometimes they submit a budget and they return the budget, they pass it that same way without removing or adding. I served the governor. I served Governor Chimaroke Namani as Commissioner for Youth and Sports. And I remember once he communicated something to me on Rangers. When I returned it to him, I said approved as recommended. He nearly chopped off my head that day. Say which one is recommended? As recommended. Recommended by who? So it means you are in connivance with those people that ask you to scrutinize something, that then you should scrutinize it. So that's what the legislature is supposed to do. There's no way they give you a budget and return the budget 100% like that. You must tinker with something. You must add something. You must find something that at least, not that you're going to dangerously alter it, but there should be at least. But most times we see the thing returned like that, verbatim, unedited. But the big question is, which is healthier for democracy? Confrontation or cooperation? Because a particular judge told me that state security sometimes is more important than this grandstanding.
Yes.
State security. So too much conflict can stall governance, delay development projects, and create political instability. But too much money can weaken accountability, reduce transparency, and undermine the very purpose of legislative oversight, to hold the executive to account, to check the executive. So, and that's why this conversation becomes even more delicate. Governors often wield significant political influence. Party structures sometimes blur institutional boundaries, and until recently, financial autonomy of state legislature was a major concern. Because they want to buy a car, they go cap in hand begging. They want to even have a overhead, they go, doing that begging from day to day. The true test of democratic maturity is not whether the executive and legislature agree at all times, but whether they respect constitutional boundaries while working in the public interests. So tonight, we ask the big and critical questions. When does harmony strengthen governance? And when does it weaken accountability? When does oversight protect democracy? And when does it become political grandstanding? And in the practical terms, how should these two arms relate for citizens to truly feel the dividends of democracy? Because ultimately, this conversation is not about political elites, it's about the Nigerian people. It is about roads built on time, budgets implemented transparently, laws passed responsibly, and public funds protected diligently. These are the issues. Democracy is not friendship between institutions, it is responsibility within institutions. And striking that balance between harmony and oversight may very well determine the quality of governance we experience today and the stability of our democracy tomorrow. Of course, my name is still Uchen Nasrelani, okay, and of course, I'm your uncle. I'm being joined this evening, as we say, by a member of the Enugu State House of Assembly from Anyeri constituency from 2019 to 2023. He holds a first degree, a second degree, and pursuing a third degree in engineering. Is it mechanical engineering?
Yes, mechanical engineering.
Mechanical engineering. And he is Honorable Engineer Chinedu Otaka. Honorable, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, yes, you barely 3 years now you left office.
Yes.
So what has it been? What's life been like? After the leg light of being an honorable member and now you are into private practice. So what's life for you?
Well, life is just what it is, because the most important thing is to be able to lay a foundation that is very good, and a better foundation that after which you understand that politics is a call for service. After you must have finished serving, you now fall back to what you're doing. That's the most important thing. So it is not a must that you actually continue in that particular office. A time to serve the people, a time to retire, a time to come back, and a time to face other things. But the most important thing is for you to be able to have something doing. So I just fall back to my business that I used to do before I became a member of the assembly. So life has been very fine, life has been wonderful, and I've been enjoying the political terrain.
Yes, as they would say in Nigeria, are you missing the clear lights, the ratamas of the assembly? Are you missing that?
Yes, of course. Who do miss? I am missing those things. I missed a lot of things in the state assembly, especially the way we used to come together and analyze some things and discuss as members of the assembly. It is not easy to actually come far with some certain persons who are in political terrain, and after day, for some time you'll not be able to see them again. So I'm missing the scenario.
Never too much. Okay, from your practical experience, from your legislative experience, what would you say is the most common cause of friction between the two arms of government?
Yes, actually, the most common cause of friction between two arms of government, that is, we're talking about the legislature and the executive,
yes,
particularly. You see, people misunderstand the whole thing between the executive and the legislature. Professor, to answer your question, if there is a scenario whereby the executive and legislature are actually elected on the platform a particular party, they wouldn't have problem because they have one policy, one ideology, and one idea. So, but the most infringing things, which is like a stumbling block between the both of them, is when both of the arms of government are not elected under the same platform of party. That means they don't have the same ideology, they don't have the same idea, they don't push the same policy. That is where you normally have that particular infringement.
Okay, for a good 4 years, you represented the good people of Aniri state constituency. Did you witness any point in time the legislature had very serious issues with the executive? And if it happened, how did people solve it?
Yes, actually, during that very time from 2019 and 2023, there was a time we had a serious issue. But I remember a particular incident when when the executive bill came in. We have two bills, executive bill and private membership bill. That private member bill can be a bill that is sponsored by a particular serving member or a group of people or organization who actually sponsor the thing. Then the other one is executive bill. The executive bill comes from direct executives. So there was a particular time executive bill came in. The executive bill was about for us to be able to enact a law, to be able to give precedence to governors, former governors and former deputy governors, for them to be collecting monthly salary and some certain dividends, which is against the people, that is against the mass interest. So that was what we actually have a little problem between the executive and the legislature, and we are trying to find what to do to be able to fine-tune such patterns so it won't actually trigger the problem. So at the end of the day, we sort it out, and we make the executive understand that it's not our fault for not to pass that bill, but because it is anti-people's bill.
So you didn't pass that bill?
We didn't pass that bill.
Now, and so this brings me to the issue, because many people out there believe, maybe wrongly, that every House of Assembly is a rubber stamp. And you just provided one example where the legislature of 2019 to 2023, even though working cooperatively with the executive, refused to pass a bill that, as you say, would have been anti-people. So it's not true to just label legislatures as rubber stamps of. Haven't you had people say you guys are rubber?
Of course, I've heard a lot of time people say that legislatures are rubber stamps to the executives, but I stand to say no to that. It depends on the particular assembly, because every assembly has their agenda.
Yes.
So our agenda, as at the time we were in members of the assembly, as at the time we are in state assembly, our agenda is very clear. But I remember vividly why people always say that legislatures are rubber stamps is because there's a particular bill from the executive that comes to the state assembly that will not be given any swift passage. But that is not all. The most important thing is to understand whether the policies, because the executive bill, either they come with the policy they want to implement so as to make their work very straightforward, or to come with policies that will to fine-tune the administration, or to come with something we'll call rephrasal or repeal of a particular bill, which will actually make their work very fine. So most times, people don't understand what is in the bill that the executive bring before saying rubber stamp, because the legislatures look at it and pass it. I remember there was a time in the assembly where the governor sent in some commissioner nominees. So I wouldn't want to mention names, but I want to tell you that actually the success of every legislative business to a great extent depend on the dynamic application of rules, of programs and procedures. Why I said so is because the leadership of the House is the only arm that further determines what this particular capacity is all about. The capacity of members and also the political will. I remember what happened then. So they used to bring the nominees' files a day before their screening. So when they brought it, I went home with it. I went through all the nominees' files. I found out a problem. there is particular, I don't want to mention the particular file that I find in somebody's CV. The person did not include any certificate to show or to buttress or to support those particular things he filed out in his CV. I didn't find it. Rather, what I found was an attendance sheet, class attendance, that he wrote an attendant. He wrote his name and his reg number as he attended the class, and he claimed that he read law. So I went through it. I said maybe it was a mistake. So I came the next morning when we were about to get into executive session. I rushed to my colleague Chukwabasi. I said, please let me see your file. I want to find out this very pattern, whether it's a mistake. It's what the same thing. Behold, it was the same thing. So when before we get to the Hello Chamber, we used to have this executive section. So in that section, I raised it because before you raise anything in the Hello Chamber, you have to raise it in the executive section. So I raised it. I told Mr. Speaker, please, I have reservation for this particular person, that he did not even file anything. There is nothing to show that
support his claims.
That is it. So when the speaker heard the name of the person from me, he said, please, this is governor's candidate, but it's very wrong. So I insisted that I must raise the issue for him to go and provide his certificate. Did not include there. What we saw was only his attendance, list, his attendance that he photocopied. So when I was raising my hands up in the Hello Chamber, speaker refused to give me audience. He refused to give me
That's the power of the speaker.
That's the problem. So that is the problem. If he had allowed me, the public would have known that this person is not competent, doesn't have the capacity to be a commissioner, and that would have given opportunity to governor to replace the person. So we are not fighting the governor, we're not fighting the executive. Rather, we're actually telling them this is what and what and what. There's a mistake there. They should actually go back and bring another person. You can tell if he had brought another person, the person would have done more, better than the person that was brought to us. So that's how we think. So it depends on who individual capacity.
No, we see that even when I was in government, I recall there was one guy that came, submitted his CV, discovered he got WAEC after he got a degree. He got WAEC
after he got a degree.
So, but somehow he was still clear.
Yeah.
So we understand. But I'm going to ask you. You are chairman of the committee, Youth, Sports and Security Matters. Well, yes, you did that. So, and that is where my question comes. What specific oversight tools, or is it hearings, is it site visits, or is it committees, you find most effective for ensuring that budgets are implemented? Because when you pass the budgets, as chairman of Youth, Sports and Security, so how did you ensure that the budget for those ministries or agencies or departments were effectively implemented?
Actually, when a budget is presented by the governor to the House, the next thing we do is to be able to get into budget defense. Then after the budget defense, it didn't stop there. What you need to do is to follow up that budget defense through oversight in different ministries, parastatals, and MDAs. Now, I found so much interest in that oversight, because oversight is where you are going to monitor the budget you approve. But the problem that they have in the ministry and MDAs are that they did not assess, they could not assess funds. Now, but I put it to you that even if you didn't assess funds, there are some amount of funds that you assessed. Tell us what happened with the money. Tell us how you've been able to implement those particular funds. Because, for example, if a budget is made for a particular project and maybe 1 billion that was budgeted for the project, and 500 million naira, you assessed it within the middle of the year, you expected to use that 500 billion naira to reflect that particular 1 billion naira project, so that you're able to carry over the next one to the next if they don't release it again to that particular year. So what we do is that we go straight to say, since you didn't have your full assessment of the budget, or money was not released for that budget fully, those ones that was released by batch, what did we do? So we do now follow out, we do follow the budget and know whether what is on ground is commensurate and tantamount to what was said to have been done. So I prefer that oversight is a typical scrutinization of the executive. And that does not mean that you are, stampeding, or maybe you are, masterminding the interest of the executive. or maybe you're witch hunting the executive. No, you're not witch hunting them. You're doing your job. You are following exactly what the Constitution said you should do.
But when you do that, it's often mistaken for you are attacking the government. Is that the way we see it?
That is some people who understand it that way. If some executive understand it that way, that is very wrong. Because when you study the budget, when you study the Constitution, normally I used to tell people that the most important thing you do as a human being, not actually because you are a lawmaker or irrespective of your discipline, what you need to do as a citizen of Nigeria is to be acclimatized with the Constitution. That is why when you go to Western world, everybody, irrespective of cost, knows the Constitution, the background, what you should do and what you shouldn't do. The Constitution tells you what to do. If you break out the Constitution, the executive or every person who cares to know will understand that you are doing the right thing. That the Constitution is not hard. We have in the Constitution, 1999 Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria, as authored in 2010. It has just 8 chapters. It has 320 sections. And it has 7 schedules. Out of the first chapter and the second chapter, it talks about general provision and the fundamental objectives. The third one is the citizenship, which you, as a citizen, you know your rights. The fourth one is the fundamental human rights, which you know about yourself, not because you're a lawmaker or because you are a lawyer. It is not only lawyers that are supposed to be acquainted with the Constitution. Then the fifth one is what we're talking about. This is the legislature. The sixth one is the executive. The seventh one is the judiciary. The eighth one is that of the one that is federal capital territory and the general provision, supplementary provisions. So that is schedule. You have first schedule, second schedule, third schedule, fourth schedule, fifth schedule. Is talking about that of electoral act and the oath, which is the seventh schedule. So those are things that you need to be acquainted with before you get into being a lawmaker. So I was elected as an engineer. But I was equipped with the Constitution. The Constitution equipped you. When you get to the house, you have standing order. You need to equip yourself with a standing order to know your roles you need to play and the things you need to do and the things you don't need to do in the house. So if you fail those particular damage, you fail the people. If you always come to Hello Chamber and stay without doing anything, that means your people have sent you to come and be a deaf and dumb there.
I want to take you back to that executive session and then the plenary, where you raised your hand and you were denied access.
Yes.
So after that, you just went to be the good boy.
To be the good boy, I wouldn't say anything because if you say something, people will just start attacking you, especially in the house. Yes.
Okay. But ordinarily, what would you have done after that?
What I would have done was to...
What would you have done?
What I would have done was to stage a press conference. Call people that matters and call Enugu State that this is what I saw. Then I witnessed and I discovered that this particular person who is not capable, who is not fit for purpose, who was brought.
But you know, by not doing this, you have failed the state.
I don't fail the state. I'm doing my job. But
you didn't complete your job.
I didn't complete my job. Then I understand because there are a lot of things that are within the covers that you wouldn't want to do.
You didn't want to rock the boat.
Yes, of course.
Okay, and that takes me to my next question. How would a legislator ordinarily balance loyalty, which is what exactly we've just done, to their political party, with the duty to provide unbiased oversight of the executive from the same party? Because obviously, you're from the same party with the executive, and that was why when the speaker didn't allow you to talk, you kept your cool.
Yes.
But of course, by that, you guys did just a little bit of the service to the people. But it's not just in your time. I'll give you an example. Another guy who came back, almost the same time, he came back, he completed the PhD, he didn't attach anything. So these are simple things. If you say you have a PhD, you have a master's, you do what? You attach evidence to show. Some universities are not universities. There are countries' universities are just as bad as what do you call it? Secondary school. But they say it's a PhD. Anyway, now I will ask you a very honest question. Do you really believe there is separation of powers? Is it a reality in state politics, or is it just more of a corporation of powers?
Yes.
Is it corporation of powers or is it separation of powers?
Ijele, thank you so much for that question. That question is 1 billion question. Actually, I believe in separation of power. You see, we practice separation of power because we practice presidential system of government. Unlike India, where you practice parliamentary system of government. In India, the executive is... So, you need cooperation with the executive. Does not mean that there is nothing like separation of power. Your power lies on your ability, your competency to be able to scrutinize what executives have done or are doing, as the case may be. But if you fail to do, just like we have different committees, I serve in the committee of youth, sports, and security. I engage the security agencies in the states and ask them questions what they've been able to do. If we have any particular issue of security issue, I call on them. I visit the commissioner of police. I visit all the arms of the agencies of security in the state to know what they are doing on that particular path. I ask questions. So, and the governor has not stopped me or called me to stop asking questions. No. It is the incompetence of some members who could not do their job that people are looking at, people who are said to be the rubber stamp.
Yes.
The rubber stamp. You understand? But as long as you are doing your job, then nobody will say you're a rubber stamp. That is what it is. It's a cooperation. A division of labor in that aspect or separation of power exists. And I believe so much in separation of power because executive have not stopped anybody from doing just like what we have in the state, Pitamba. Pitamba is one man that will always love the legislature to do their job by scrutinizing to actually know whether what he's putting in is actually what is on ground. What is being told by his ministers, what is being told by his commissioners and head of protesters is exactly what is on paper, what is on ground. So it is the duty of the legislature to fight, to ensure that that particular thing that His Excellency has the manifesto is what is on ground. So the executive will be more happier if you do your job than allowing your job, thinking that the executive will be angry if you do your job or be a problem to the executive. That's how it is the individual perspective.
Okay. In spite of what you are saying, many Nigerians still argue that state assemblies are too dependent on governors. I don't know whether you agree. I don't say it's your state, but looking around the houses of assembly in Nigeria, do you agree that state assemblies are too dependent on governors? That's one. Two, how can legislative autonomy be strengthened? And finally, should state assemblies have stronger financial independence, or should they still be dependent on the executive for all, cap in hand, going to beg for money?
To state the facts, I am one man who always takes the facts. The fact remains that the state assembly is completely dependent on the executives. Why? Because the issue of this state autonomy, legislative autonomy, has never been finalized. If they conclude on the issue, which of course the Supreme Court have actually given the verdict on that they should go ahead. What is left on it is for the governors to cooperate and ensure that we have legislative autonomy. If we have legislative autonomy, the legislature will not depend on the executive. But as long as it is this way, yes. Even that oversight they are going, they need to forward their car to go to oversight.
That's the two that they've been overspending.
So the only thing that is holding Nigeria is make the state legislature give them autonomy. If they have autonomy on that, I'm sure that 80% problem that is arising from that will be solved. They will do their job and do their job very much effective. Let me tell you, the issue of the application, which is dynamic, the application of rules and practice and procedures in the house, it will ensure and bring high quality, effective legislation. It will also bring effective oversight. It will also give rise to good governance and development. These things are anchored on when they have state autonomy. If legislatures become autonomy, I am sure that a lot of things will be put in place, which is going to be at the positive side. And they will not be able to relax and have their think that and do their job without looking at anybody. Because the moment you are doing something and remember the person you are trying to scrutinize is the same person that will be giving you your next meal. you'll be somehow shivering and jittering. It only takes someone who is capacious enough, who has the temerity, who has the political will to be able to stand on your ground and say, this is what I want. Let me give you an example. There was a time in the House Assembly, I happened to be a member of a public accounts committee, which was chaired by Chinedu Wamba. A time came when we sat together, we wanted to go to government house for oversight. People started making calls. They started calling the governor, started making calls that we want to come to. So, maybe the executive heard that we want to come for oversight. What gets to their mind is that maybe witch hunting, maybe a problem. But it is not witch hunting. It is according to constitution. There may be some certain things that they fail to put in place the way it should be. But the nature of that oversight will tell them, no, this should be here, this should be here. Not necessarily mean that you've eaten money. Or will trace the money to see whether it has gone to private account or something. No, but to make sure that everything is streamlined the way it should be according to constitution. Constitution has given us the path to play by our functions and duties, and also giving the executive their part to play by their functions and their duties. So it's a separate duty. So coming to streamline what the executive have done is your job. So that's how it is. And people started flipping up. Before you know it, you don't even go to that particular place. You didn't even. Because of that was supposed to be someone to answer some questions, which at the end of the day we didn't even call him. We didn't ask me anything because they made a call and they were afraid. I was one of the person who said, "No, let us go. The governor will be happy to even see us."
Did that cost you a second time?
Well, I would say
Did that cost you a second
part of this capacity, part of this vibrancy, part of this outspoken are one of the reasons why I did not go back to second time. Because I say and I see things and I say it the way it is. Not because of political brouhaha that we had in the past. No. Because our leader then Nikoha was contesting for governor. I am not contesting for governor. It's not me. I'm doing my job. So it's because of the fact that when you say this is what you need, this is what should be done the way it should be, because we are following that, it actually causes most of the problem that we have in politics.
Rumors flew around Enugu at a particular point in time. Well, I'm not sure I want you to elaborate on this, but I want you just to say whether there's element of truth or lack of it in the rumor. That at a point in time, you refuse a 5 million naira bribe to actually disregard zoning or accept zoning. I don't know what it was, but for me, I'm not, because for me it's always been a rumor and a gossip. And I have opportunity to see you one-on-one. I'm asking, was there an approach like that? You turned down 5 million naira?
Actually, to say the truth, there was never anything like that.
But you had the rumor.
Yes, I saw the room. I didn't know if it was flying. What would I do? I just allowed the room to fly.
Okay, I just wanted to
So Governor Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi, I know, wouldn't approach you with that kind of thing. Rather, he will approach you with other sort of thing, not giving you money and telling you to give you a bribe to be able to get there. Even though there was something like that, but there was no money. Money was not involved. Okay. But I was asked to sign, and if I signed, there was a conversation. There was
no 5 million.
Not even, yeah, there was no 5 million naira bribe at all.
Thank you very much. It's good to clear some of these doubts. So that I'm sure when people watch this on YouTube or Facebook, they will now believe, because it's now come from you.
Yes.
The rumor has been hanging, so we're going to put to paid the fact that nobody ever offered you 5 million, took less of refusing the 5 million. Okay, during the time of you served, your regular conversations with the government, would you say that was a sign of weakness or a strategy for effective governance?
Confrontation.
That's it. Consultation with the governor very often. You know, each time you had issues,
yes.
I let you guys who always invited you have a conversation and then you understand yourselves.
Yes.
Now some people say it is weakness, or do you think it's a strategy for good governance?
Actually, cooperation in everything that has to do with governance, there must be cooperation, understanding, working together. I served under Governor Wine as a state governor. Governor Wine is someone who always maintains peace. He doesn't want any problem to erupt from anywhere. That is why most of the time, each time we want to settle something, it gets to his team. So it is not a matter of weakness. It is not as a result of weakness, but as a result of boldness to confront an illegality. Most of us that confronted illegality in the house. That is the reason why most of us actually get to governor to be able to see him and talk about it, because we confronted illegalities. A lot of illegalities actually passed through in the house. But we said no to some of us who actually believe in unity, believe in oneness, believe in what we actually see. So that's exactly what the governor then was actually mediating to have peace. So I know there are some of them. I know there are some of them who have called me to mentor them on some certain areas, especially my own committee, to mentor them on some certain things they should do. Now, that is one of the reasons why you need to rate the Senate Assembly. How do you rate them? You rate them by this question you said. You rate them based on the number of bill that was assented to by the governor. By the time they must have finished, you start rating them based on how many bill, because before a bill could be passed into law, it has to go through processes. The first process has to be preliminary. Second process has to be first reading, with the presentation. Second reading. Second reading is where you have arguments, you have different, perspective and different disagreements and agreements. After which you get to third reading. That third reading could be possible passage and approval. After which you get to the assent by the governor or by the president, as the case may be. After the assent, we have the gazetting. After gazetting, enrollment. If a bill passed through those processes, it will become a law. You count it one for that particular House Assembly. So I can tell you, during our own time, we have about 150 something bills that were passed into law in our own advantage, 7th Assembly. So, if peradventure this particular House of Assembly finish their tenure, we'll begin to count how many bills were they able to pass.
And that we are assented.
And they were assented to, because before you count it as a bill, you must ensure that it has to be assented to. If it's assented to, you can actually do the other phrase that every particular thing has to be a resolution of the House. If you can't say assented to, you can say resolution of the House. I mean, bill that has been under resolution. That is what gives advantage to a House. You know, on that basis, you now rate the House, whether it has done well or whether it hasn't done well. So that is on that particular perspective.
Okay. I'm going to take you to what, of course, something that you said was controversial, and that has to do with rotational equity. That's the word, or rotational governorship.
Yes.
Somehow, rightly or wrongly, that pattern has continued to evolve in the Igbo state. Do you think it has stabilized the state, and is it something that should be continued?
Well, on my own interest, and as someone who said the thing the way it is, I think it has come to stay. It has come to stay, and it is giving room for peace. It's giving room for reducing pressure and political instability. It has come to stay, and I wish such thing continue. The zoning and rotation among the three senatorial zones is very perfect. It's very good. So as long as it has started, let it continue.
Okay.
That is why on that zoning, zoning should trickle down.
Yeah.
The zoning should trickle down. If it is actually in the state, let it trickle down. Anybody who has come in the venture of zoning should trickle down the zoning process. Like we are actually clamoring and Inri, Ogun, and Ojirio Federal Constituency. In this state local government, there's been only 2 local government that have been going for House of Reps. And it has not gone. That is why we have what we call Kanirije House of Reps. Kanirije. Because Kanirije man has never, since the return of democracy in 1999. 1999, Uche Ekwe went for 4 years. After Uche Ekwe of Ogu, Mmako, they went to Ojiba, KGB Ogwagwa, went for 8 years. From that 2003 to 2011, then Toby took over from Ogun. From that 2011 to 2023, that is another 12 years. So if you add the 12 years of Toby and add the 4 years of Uchekwe, you can see they have gone for 16 years. If you add the 4 years of Omi Hupu now and add the 8 years of KGB Ogwagwa, you see they have 12 years, and it is 0.
But they say you guys collected senators.
No, it's a different ball game. We're not talking Senate, we're talking House
they
of
say when I
Reps.
collected senators, spent there, I was there for 20 years.
There's no way we can spend our tenure for Senate and for Rep at the same time. It's not possible. This House of Reps is what concerns Aniri Ogu and Oji River. Senate concerns the 5 local government. Because if Senate happens to come back to Greater Ogu, it will not come to Aniri again.
Okay.
It will come to Aniri again. So let us watch, just like what we have, if we have in a family. We have a family and our father brings something for us to share. You not say because you've gotten something that belongs to general, therefore you will not be able to ketoke in that your family share. You have to ketoke in your family share. You have to be keted.
Which you
have to ketoke because for 28 years now it has been zero.
Okay, that makes a very interesting part of this conversation. Canyon region.
Yes.
Okay. It has been my last question to you. That I think we covered virtually all areas. I like this idea of Canyon region.
Thank you.
We don't get prepared another to Okay.
You understand? You understand?
Okay. Honorable Attacker, you've been around. You've seen governments come and go. Currently, in the past 2 years and the 10 months, we'll have a new sheriff in town. That sheriff is Peter Within. Personal assessment of Peter Mba and his style of governance since he took over 2 years and 10 months ago.
Peter Ndubisi Mba, His Excellency, I will say categorically clear that he has done well. You see, people don't even know the areas that affect humanity that this man has touched. I always tell people who cares to listen, I'm not here to begin to talk or to blow what Peter Mba has done. Rather, I'm laying emphasis on the things that we're about to see. By the time anyone will begin to understand and appreciate what Peter Mba is doing now is in 15 years' time, 20 years' time. By the time our young secondary school students must have grown to that level, they will begin to compete with the external world in the area of tech, because technology rules the world. I don't know whether you've taken a tour to GTC.
I have.
Media people, the media men of Peter Mba is not even advertising those particular things they should.
They will fight you.
No, I'm giving them a very good credit, but they should advertise what is there.
Yes, yes.
If you get to GTC, if it happens to be, luckily I happens to be one of those people who are contractors that worked in GTC and installed CCTV camera. We have about 250 something cameras in GTC. GTC there, all the nooks and crannies of GTC, starting from outside, starting from the mechanical section, the electrical section, all the laboratories, all the hall, everything is on surveillance. And they are all brought together in a particular control room. He has two control rooms. One of the control rooms is there, and another control room is the principal's office. The principal can be, we also install smart speakers across all the classes and the halls and the lab. The principal can be in his office, get his microphone, watch any student that is misbehaving and call the person by name. So they are under surveillance. And we also have, what actually baffles me is that we also have IoT, Internet of Things, laboratory, where those students learn pure tech. If you see the equipment that Peter Mba brought there, you'll be marveled. A lot of people who have their children in private school have withdrawn those students and asked them to come to GTC. In 15 years' time, you will see what the kind of caliber, the kind of capacity, the kind of intellectual wisdom that our students, our children of Enugu State, people who pass through that particular GTC must have started giving. That's exactly what is giving China what they have today. In China, they are all completely tech. Both in primary school and secondary school, they'll start doing something. By the time those people finish from GTC, you will see them, they will be independent of themselves and they start doing something. That is the tech. So, apart from the smart school thing, people should look into what he's doing in that GTC. Apart from economic area that have grown so well. Peter Mba, if you ask me to give 100%, based on 100% rate, I'll give him 100%.
won't give you up.
He won't get the hope. He has done perfectly well. That's why he needs someone that will help him in the area of galvanizing support from the legislative complementation. That is to say, the Kaniri Jail movement.
Okay.
So we're able to help him. All those House of Reps, all the senators, they should come together and complement the effort of Peter Mba. I think we'll start working very well.
Okay, Honorable Chinedu Kwataka, I want to thank you for this evening. I want you to thank you for finding time to explain your understanding of the relation between the executive and the legislature. And of course, I want to thank you for your new mantra, Kaniri Je.
Thank you.
And most importantly, I want to thank you for your last comment at the governor of Enugu State, who say you score 100%. Where did you play? So we want to thank you, and to our viewers. You listened to Honorable Chinedu Otaka, and I'm sure you enjoyed the session as much as we did. If you did, join us same time tomorrow for yet another interesting edition on Political Conversations. Do have a lovely evening.
Thank you.